start our first video of this particular series, and the title of this video is multi-master implementation of Kubernetes cluster with Kubernetes method. So we are going to create high availability for master node. We already know that how to set up the cluster with a single master, correct? Now we are providing the high availability feature on the master, because if you are running your cluster with single master, there is always a chance that if your one master goes down, your entire cluster will go down. Now, to avoid this kind of failures, Kubernetes do have a multi-master setups are available. Correct. Now, today we are going to see the multi-master implementation with kubeadm method. There is another alternative method is also available if you want to set up multi-master setup, that is called as kubespray. Correct. We will see it later on. What is the kubespray and how we are going to use the kubespray in real-time environment. But before that, we should understand how to do it with the help of kubeadm method. So this is the scenario which we are planning to do it. That I do have two master server. Okay. Now these two master would be implemented. Okay. And I do have three worker nodes available. Worker 1, worker 2, and worker 3. Now this entire setup which we are planning to do, we have done the VMware installation already on the server. We have created all these machines, virtual machines, with respect to the memory and the processor which we required. So normally for master machine we required 2-core processor with at least 4 GB or at least 2 GB RAM in order to understand learning purpose. In production environment you really don't have to worry because our servers are multi-core and we do have a lot of RAM available, so we really don't have to worry about it. But in learning environment, we are allocating this much memory and processor in order to implement the complete multi-master setup with the help of virtualization method. As far as worker is concerned, I am keeping the memory same, but I am reducing the core, means processor per core would be 1 core per processor. Now whatever we are dealing with, everything is virtualized. Everything would be done in a virtualized environment. I have installed the CentOS operating system 7.9 already. Now all the machines already have the respected IP addresses, correct? So that is also done in this particular lab, correct? So this entire setup has been prepared already and it is ready to go, correct? But we have not followed any method or any implementation with respect to Kubernetes. We just created the virtual machine, correct? Now here there is one more additional thing is required, because when you are dealing with high availability, if you have multiple masters available in your environment, then you should implement a load balancer over it, correct? Because your client is sending the request to any of the master in the cluster environment. So there has to be a load balancer in between this. If you do not want to use the load balancer, then your client has to configure in a such a way that it should go to either this master, or if you would like to switch to this master, if this goes failed, then manual things would be required. But if you would like to do automation, or if you would like to handle it through load balancer, so here we are implementing one load balancer under HAProxy, and this load balancer will help us in order to do the load balancing between the master. So client will send a request to the load balancer, and load balancer will decide which master that request will go based on what method you are using to configure your load balancer. 99% we are going to use for round robin method. That is the most appropriate and most reliable method which we are going to implement. So overall we are supposed to have these 5 machines plus one HAProxy machine with this particular configuration. Now this is just a load balancer, so we really don't require too much amount of memory and CPU over here. correct? So 2 GB RAM, 1 core processor, 50 GB hard disk, and CentOS 7.9 would be installed. Now remember that this load balancer is a software based load balancer. HAProxy we are using. HAProxy is a very interesting tool which can be used in a multiple way, and one of the way is a load balancer. So we are implementing the HAProxy on the top of the entire setup. So whenever the request will come to the load balancer will send that request to the backend. So it would be running in a round robin method. So one request will go to the master one, but then master will go to the rest of the process if you understand the architecture. So master will do the rest of the processes, and then he will deploy the application on the top of any worker. I hope you remember what is the architecture, how the process of a request would be flowing. Everything has been already explained to you in our previous sessions. Correct? So understand this is pretty straightforward method which we are planning to do it. Now if I show you how this entire setup has been done. So this is my entire virtual machine which we have it. Correct? And you can see these are two my master machines, and these are three worker machines, and the last one is a load balancer. So overall total, these five machine which is going to be used inside the cluster, and this is the load balancer machine which we are going to use it over here. Correct? So this is the entire setup which we are going to execute it, and we are supposed to understand step by step method how to do it. Correct? Now you can see the configuration of the master is 4 GB RAM, processor is 2 GB, 50 GB hard disk. So this is the same configuration available for master number 2, because both are treated as a master, so it required at least two processors to be there. Correct? So this is mandatory. Worker, as you see that memory I will keep it same, but the processor I would have it 1 GB. Sorry, 1 core per processor. So worker 1, worker 2 and worker 3, I keep it with the same identical configuration. The load balancer 2 GB and one processor. So I told you it's just a load balancer. Actually you really don't need to do anything with the load balancer at this moment of time. So it is just a load balancer who can do the load balancing across multiple masters. So it really don't do anything too much. So bare minimum for learning purpose, this is enough for us. Correct? So this is the overall setup which we have prepared already. Correct? Now I am going to start every machine over here. So I am going to power on every machine. But the first machine or the first setup which we are going to work it on, it's a load balancer. Now that is purposefully we are going to work it on load balancer because there is a very small step which we are supposed to do it. So we will configure the load balancer first. So what I did, I have just turned on all the machines which is currently created under the VMware workstation setup, and I already have the putty sessions over here. So if I would like to go ahead, I just close all the windows. Think some connections are already created over here. So let me close down everything. Network connection was okay. So you can see load balancer login. So this is the first machine which we are going to prepare it first. Okay. So you have to be very careful while creating the load balancer configuration over here because there are few things you have to take care of it. So what I will do it, I will log into this machine by the root user, and I will go ahead and I will first of all check what is the IP address of this load balancer. So IP address is 192.168.226.50. So what I will do it, I already created the session for it. I will go ahead and little bit change the setting for our better visibility. So I just want to log in as a root user over here. Okay, so this is my load balancer. Now from the load balancer, if I try to ping master 1, you can see my name resolution is already done. So if I go to the master 2 also, you can see the name resolution is already done. Now this is mandatory. So what is the name resolution? That means on this load balancer machine, if I go to my etc/host file, I have to put my own IP address and the FQDN and the name of the machine entry over here. Along with that, whatever masters which we are using it, okay, technically you really don't require workers, but I put that entry like that only. Technically you don't require to connect with any workers. Your main machines are master 1 and master 2. These two entries are mandatory. So I put the IP address, the fully qualified domain name of that master 1, and the name of the machine is master 1. Correct. Similarly for IP address of master 2 and the master 2 FQDN and master 2 is a name. So you have to make sure that whatever machine which you have created, you are supposed to provide a proper name to every machine, proper IP address to every machine. That is prerequisites. So you know how to set up the static IP address. Don't worry, I will show you while we are going for a master machine, okay, to check how we can do it after this particular configuration. So what I will do it, first of all, this is something which is necessary. So I have done this entry over here on the load balancer machine I'm talking about. So currently where I am working on it, I am currently working on this machine. Okay, HAProxy load balancer. Now here there is a small glitch could be available because here inside our load balancer we are using CentOS 7.9. And according to the HAProxy, there is a possibility that your SE Linux facility should go ahead and disturb the thing. So if I go ahead and check get enforce right now, I would check that my particular enforcing mode is available on SE Linux. Okay, so set enforce would be available. So if I go ahead and I will say set enforce 0, so after that we will go from enforcing to permissive. This is a temporary setup which we are doing it. Okay, if you want to do it permanent, you can permanently disable SE Linux, but technically it is not recommended. Permissive, it's okay, it will allow you, but that will generate huge amount of logs. If there is a out of scope, you are supposed to do it on at a kernel level. Correct. So currently I will keep it as permissive. That is a fantastic option currently which we have it, and we will proceed further. Correct. After that, on this particular load balancer machine, the IP address is also set up as static IP address. Okay, so if I go ahead and check if config, this IP address which we have set up, okay, technically it's a static IP address which we have configured. Correct. Now internet is also working fine on this machine. So just for configuration or confirmation, you can see my internet is working over there. Correct. After that, we are supposed to install HAProxy on this machine first. Okay, so if you go ahead and say yum install HAProxy minus. Now by default, HAProxy is not installed on the CentOS machine. You are supposed to go ahead and install HAProxy on the top of this machine over here. So I'm installing HAProxy at this moment concept of time on this machine. Okay, so it will take a couple of minutes. Okay, so he find out the HA proxy. He finished the dependency and he installed the HA proxy over here. So my software, which is actually a load balancer software, which we have installed it. Correct. Now, if you go to this software installation part, you would be able to see there are few configuration you are supposed to perform. Correct. So first you need to go to this particular file and open the configuration over there. So I will go to this particular file and open the configuration. Correct. Now there are few global settings over here. So you can see this is a configuration file for HAProxy. Correct. So these are some global configuration settings are available. We are not going to touch that. Okay, these are some global and default settings are available. We will keep it as it is. Now here forward from this particular point, whatever is available, we will comment all the lines over here because these are default software settings. This is a dummy software settings which is available. So we are going to comment all these lines together. Okay, backend static, balance, server. Okay, every single line we are going to comment it. Okay, be careful with this. Now we will go at the bottom of this. Okay, now there are few changes we are supposed to perform it over here. Now I have make those changes readily available. The first change would be the mode would be TCP over here. By default, if you go to the default setting of this entire HA proxy, the mode is actually HTTP. So we are going to go ahead and change it to TCP. Now there is a reason behind it why we are want to do it TCP. Why not HTTP? Correct. Anyhow, we are trying to connect with API server on the top of HTTP protocol. Isn't it? Yes. Then why we are not load balancer to take the HTTP protocol traffic? Why we are using TCP? Now there is a specific reason. If I configure HTTP traffic over here, then I have to configure SSL TLS certificate separately for this particular traffic. So rather doing that, we will make it very simple. TCP we will use it. So TCP you really don't really need to worry about SSL TLS certificate over here. It's already secure. Okay. So that is something done by my networking part. And your request would be forwarded to the masters. So master will take care about SSL TLS. So certificate related issue, I really don't want to do it on the top of HA proxy. That's the reason I am using the mode called as TCP. So by default, it will work for HTTP, but you can make it work for TCP load balancing also. So that is the first change you are supposed to do it. Rest of the thing would remain same. We will go at the bottom and we would like to add few lines over here according to our setup. Okay, so these are some lines. You really don't need to understand what these lines mean by. Okay, but you have to make it proper formatting over here because that is necessary. So here we are declaring the front end configuration. The name of that front end configuration is the Kubernetes front end. And this front end configuration will bind with the IP address of load balancer. So who is my front end actually? So according to the diagram, okay, if I go to the MS Paint, this load balancer is a front end. So whenever you are configuring HA proxy, you are supposed to declare what is your front end. So this IP address will consider as a front end IP address. and these two IP address would be considered as a backend IP address. Now this is some settings which you need to understand when you are dealing with HAProxy. So here I declare what is my front end and on which particular port number my front end is working on it. So technically the front end is working on 6443. That means any request is coming on this particular port, I should accept it. This is what it means, correct? So technically speaking, this is a meaning of this line. Now whenever this request will come on this particular IP address, on this particular port number, so I should send that request to where? The default backend. So what is my default backend? That is called as Kubernetes backend, which is I am going to configure right now. So any request is coming to this front end IP address on this particular port number, the default backend would be the my below configuration. This is the default backend configuration which we required. Okay, so you can see balance is a round robin, and this is the server information. So this is my master 1. You can see I am providing the name of that machine, master 1, master 2, and these are the IP address along with on that particular IP address on which port number I need to go for it. 6443. Correct. Now don't worry about these three options: check, fall, 3, rise 2. Don't worry about it. These are kind of a health check, you can say it. Okay, so we will keep it as a default. Whatever setting suggested by HAProxy, we will keep it like that. Correct. So this is my front end configuration. This is my back end configuration. So any request will come to this front end. It will forward that request to this back end configuration. So that is something which we are supposed to do it. I would save this particular file and I would say systemctl status HAProxy. Now currently this service has been down. I would like to go ahead and say start. Now whenever you are going to start it, it's going to go ahead and show you some warning over there. Okay, forget about that because these warnings are coming because we are not using HTTP, rather we are using TCP. Correct? So my load balancer is currently working. The most important part would be my front end should be working over here. So you can carefully check this particular IP address is currently running on this port number. So my front end is absolutely working fine at this moment of time. And you could see this, my load balancer is currently working. Okay. So we will stop our first video over here where we are configuring HAProxy.